Well, hey there guys, and welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm going to be exploring my collecting goals for 2025, and when I started doing that, I basically started thinking about, like, where did collecting come from for me? What's my perspective on the future of collecting? And what do you guys think is going to be the future of collecting? So this video is going to have a lot of questions, and might not really be my collecting goals for next year, but I started to dig deeper, and there's really a couple things I just wanted to start talking about over here in the Edge Retro Geek Out community. So let's get started. The last couple decades have definitely been a journey from a niche hobby to mainstream, at least from my perspective. How adult collectors of vintage and retro-inspired toys definitely became a high-value demographic and target audience for multiple companies. Nostalgia has always had value, and now it's being used as a currency they can bank on. The impact of the MCU that everybody knows about, and all the subsequent shows that came out of its success based on the comics, yet comics seem to be only found on the banners of most Comic-Cons nowadays. Collectors and enthusiasts are looking for a different experience, or reliving an experience, retro gaming and retro-inspired games, but also pop culture revivals on as many collectibles as possible. You thought they knew how to merchandise back in the 80s, well, they'd pretty much slap it on anything right now. And there's also an evolution of accessibility of information and the toys itself, from scouring flea markets and conventions to an industry that's now catering to adult collectors directly, hyper-targeted, and they respond with their wallet before the product even hits prototype stage in some cases. Back in the day, it was an adventure just to go out finding information on certain toy lines, or trying to find like that one documentary that was made a couple decades ago, and you needed to find like a DVD rip from it because it was nowhere available, you know. There were a couple TV shows, but you always had to wait for like the next season, and then it would only be like 8 episodes or something. I remember really looking forward to like, oh, when is the next season of Toy Hunter coming out? When are we gonna get like a new season of The Secret Stash? And even though that stuff wasn't really like too focused on the stuff I was into at the time, it kind of still made you feel like you weren't part of the mainstream in a way. It was still something you need to look for, you needed to really dig around for in order to get closer to it, get more attached to the community. That definitely was there, because there's always been a toy community and a toy collector community, but it seemed like now with the internet, it's just a little bit easier to get connected to a couple guys that are near you or into the same things. It's grown, and there's a lot more different subgenres right now. It definitely grew a lot. over the last 6 years, it definitely grew a lot. COVID-19 had a big impact as the pandemic brought a surge of new collectors into the hobby, looking for something to do, whether it was old or some kind of new. There's for sure pandemic-faced collectors, where many entered for nostalgia and escapism. They're now exiting as life has normalized, or they're switching focus on what they desire to collect, or simply found another thing that's exciting. But it also adds stress to the bubble, because there's an influx of collections that are hitting the market, creating instability in supply and demand. A lot of them bought at high prices, or bought because they thought they could flip it down the line. The aftermath is that some of these toys went up so much in value, but yet now they're just sitting and not moving anymore. There was definitely some opportunity because a lot of people started digging around in their attics and their basements and popping stuff up, and obviously a lot of people were asking about things they were after. It seems like also the 90s kids started, you know, digging around in what was their nostalgia. So there was definitely a lot of newly adult collectors trying to get into all of this stuff, and they were greeted by a lot of people that were already welcoming them into the internet communities and stuff like that, but the prices were just going up because stuff would sell instantly. And then if we fast forward a couple years, we see more declining deals. Is the era of affordable finds over, or are we waiting for a market correction as surplus drives prices down? There's definitely a shift in focus for a lot of collectors that now are refining their goals, prioritizing hit lists, or completing specific toy lines. There's also a financial strain as prices climb and people are getting priced out of the hobby. Or do we simply just need to adjust our expectations of what it means to be collecting? Because if we're looking back to a couple of videos, you got a trunk full of toys at the flea market for like 40 bucks. And I used to do that. Now it seems like if I go to like a convention with $40, I'm gonna maybe buy one thing, maybe two, or if I get lucky, a couple. But there's never gonna be those deals of like, here's a full bag of 80s toys for $10. I mean, they could still be out there, and they're probably still out there, but they're few and far between. The other thing is, like, I basically adjusted the way I collect, also because my collection has grown. I'm looking for less things that are more out there. So when I even go to like a flea market, which definitely doesn't have any flea market prices here anymore, I'm going to like the bigger ones because I know vintage toy dealers are going to be set up over there. I look at it as kind of like a convention, and a convention where haggling is pretty much okay. It definitely beats going into like a vintage toy store at that point, but there's only a couple of really big flea markets I hit up, even though back in the day, 10 years ago, I would do 4 or 5 flea markets in one weekend. And there would always be like this next find that keeps you coming back for more, wanting to relive that feeling. So it wasn't even really about buying this stuff and putting it into your collection, but it was about finding this stuff, the thrill of the hunt. And I feel like some of these diminished finds we can kind of blame on the increased access of information. Anybody has their internet on their phone. It's right in their hands. They can look anything up. And there's a lot of YouTubers sharing information, but there's also a lot more vintage toy shops popping up. There's a lot more online communities that have altered the hunting experience. But it does also show some opportunity, because one year a toy could be the trend, an obscure desired toy going from being looked for by everybody to the next year being a showstopper at a lot of toy shows, and having it pop up constantly. Like a year ago you couldn't find these, and now they're everywhere, which does really elevate the experience of going to one of these big vintage toy conventions, because you get to see a lot of stuff and you don't really have to buy it, but it's your chance to kind of like go and check it out, something you haven't seen before or something you haven't seen in decades. But can you really experience toys without buying them? Does the need to own persist, or can content creators and communities offer alternatives? Like a couple of years ago, nobody was talking about muscle mutts. Then we started talking about it, and now they're popping up everywhere. They're still rare and uncommon, believe me. I get it, but it seems like a couple of years ago, you weren't bumping into them. You weren't finding them anywhere. And now they're, the big showstopper at the toy show. If you have one, you can put it up for a lot of money, and hopefully somebody is really into it and wants to buy it at that price. So in the end, the nice thing is that a lot of people can definitely check these out because they're going to be in the boot for a little while. Now, whether you're doing this for value or for nostalgia, there are some flaws in these toys and collectibles. There's obviously the physical toll of time, with deteriorating materials in vintage toys, from Motu leg bands to O-rings in the G.I. Joes, or Transformers with gold plastic syndrome, and sweating plastics like those Ninja Turtles, or discolorations in plastic. There's also a repair culture, but here you need the balance between preserving and accepting the impermanence of these artifacts. Yet, there's purists that rather not have any repro parts near their collectibles. And I think for the physical toys, it's not as big of a deal if you can kind of like repair it or keep it as close to the original as possible. But for some video games, if someday these video games have disc rot or end up not playing anymore, what is there really to collect in the end? What is there really left? You have certain figures in a blister card that have their legs falling off because the rubber or the plastic on the inside is, you know, losing its structure, and it's just like in there. So you could have paid a ton for like this prime card example, and then the next day you look at it and like, oh no, the arm just fell off my laser light Skeletor. Seriously? And now, with the overabundance of retro toy lines being produced by companies, crossovers and reboots you could potentially get into or have something to share with your kids, is it time for part of the bubble to shift to minimalism? Are collectors paring down in response to life phases, cultural trends, and world events? And is collecting sustainable as a moderate hobby? Is it something you jump into and jump out of? Or is this something that you kind of like sports, need your fix every week to get? Will it deliver the same experience if you're holding back constantly? If you're kind of like, I don't want to spend this much, I don't want to, you know, go into that line. Where do you draw the line for this type of stuff? So that kind of raises the question, like, what type of a collector are you? Are you somebody that's purely into the nostalgic part? Are you somebody that likes to discover things, that likes to experience things? Are you somebody that's actually doing it for the value? You kind of like want to see, where's this going to go? Is this toy going to go up in price? Are these going to become even more scarce? Are there going to be more of these flooding the market? And how do you like shift your collection around to turn a profit on it, maybe even? It does seem like a part of the collecting is, you know, pricing you out. So one thing I've been toying around with is the idea of opening up a shop that's vintage toys and retro games. But I'm asking the question, like, would this be a viable way to engage with the hobby or not? Or is it just like a risky venture in a saturated, low margin new toy market and a low stock vintage market? Like, how would I even get how would I even get enough stock in to fill up my store here in Belgium? I have no clue how to do that. And then obviously, what's the end goal? Is it pursuing value? Is the ultimate goal financial, sentimental, or is it about experience? So in the end, the hobby in 2025, I really wonder where it's going to be heading. I wonder what you guys, the other collectors and girls, are thinking about it. How are you going to adapt to maintain your passion about collecting, even though like stuff is constantly changing? It's been fluctuating the past couple of years, like with crazy prices for vintage toys. Now some of that stuff is dropping, and it also seems like there's a drop in, you know, some of these newer retro inspired toy lines that are being put out by companies just not moving enough. Overstock and surplus is being sent out to like discount stores with stuff. When you bought it first, it would have been like $40. Now it's like $6.99 somewhere. So people are definitely not going to be happy about that. I think my future in toy collecting is definitely going to be, in a way, buying less quantity, because I kind of like want to keep it in this room. I don't want it to go even further. So I'm going to try buying less, but maybe not necessarily spend less, because the things I'm after are, you know, a bit tougher to find. So maybe finds are going to be fewer, but at least I'll be happy with what I'm going to buy, I guess. Hopefully it'll make the experience a little bit better if I drive up the focus for the stuff I want. And another thing I definitely want to do is fund some interesting projects that the community is coming up with. For example, like the Army Ant that Treasure Monster Toys is doing. I love something like that. That's something I definitely want and want to invest in. So more projects like that, and maybe even like stuff that the big toy companies are putting out, if it hits the right check boxes, it's something I'm definitely into. But yeah, I definitely just want to encourage you guys to drop down in the comments below what your stories are about this, how you view things, and what's your perspective on it. So please leave it down in the comments below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I will have my toy collecting goals and more like a top 10 video of toys I'm going to be looking for. I know this maybe wasn't the video we're expecting today, but thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. YouTube memberships and the Patreon, if you want to support the channel even more, you can always check it out, what we do over there, and maybe I'll see you in the It's Retro Geek Out Discord. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. See you soon. Bye.